The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Yeah, so I was explaining this on the last show. My dog had this haircut where he was very fluffy, but the face was very trimmed closely. And so the really tiny head on this big looking Maltese mix. But then he had these spikes, the spikes up on the head. I don't know what they're doing to the spikes. And then he's got not the greatest dental work. So it featured this dental work. And so, yeah, anytime I show people those pictures from 4 years ago, Tim, they're like, woo, jump back.
True artistry was happening there.
Yeah. And the groomer was so proud. She was so proud. And I'm just like, I came home and I'm like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
Who did this? Who assaulted my dog? Anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Zagash, joined by Mike Lusky, and we're going to dive into the power of emotional intelligence in business and how empathy, self-awareness, resilience can transform not only company culture, but also customer experience and business outcomes. And we've got a special guest. We're going to dive into this with Mike. Introduce our guest today.
Oh, absolutely, Steven. Happy to, and also thanks to our followers for joining us once again today. So with us today is Tim Vogel. He founded Scenthound to create a new category of pet care focused on wellness and not just grooming. Under his leadership, Scenthound has grown quite rapidly, creating a thriving franchise model based on purpose-driven mission and also incorporating emotional intelligence, which we're going to talk a lot about today. So Tim, welcome to our show. We're so happy to have you.
No, so excited to be here to have this conversation. So thanks for having me on.
And it is an important one, yeah, for sure. So to start us off, Tim, maybe you can share with us how emotional intelligence has sort of shaped your leadership journey and even the creation of Scenthound.
Yeah, so this entrepreneurial journey has been a long one for me, and it's been over 20 years. And I always say, kind of, the business goes as the leader goes, and so it's really a personal journey. It's a personal evolution. And when you talk about like kind of emotional intelligence and empathy, there's a level of self-awareness that is needed for you to be able to kind of break through some of these boundaries as you go through business, because every stage of that entrepreneurial journey has barriers in the way, and the barrier's you. And so you have to be able to have a level of self-awareness and also a group of people around you that can help point out your blind spots so that you can evolve with the business. And so that evolution, the evolution of our business is, I think, synonymous with the evolution of Tim Vogel.
Yeah. So, I think that self-awareness is key, right? Because if you don't know your issues or your problems or your blind spots, right, that's just going to manifest in the rest of the business, right?
Totally. And it's funny, throughout our business, so we bring employees into our corporate location. We onboard franchisees and become partners with them as we take this franchising journey, and they bring in staff into their centers as well. And one of the key characteristics we look for on all three of those areas is coachability. So when we're interviewing a franchisee, potentially come on and they're interviewing us, this is a 10-year relationship, right? So it's a super important relationship. And so when we think about coachability, it's actually the ability for us to have an interaction and be able to evolve together. And when I think about coachability, there's a layer below coachability. And it's the thing that we're actually searching for, which is some level of self-awareness. And I think if you've got some level of self-awareness, you are then in a better position for coachability, which then puts adaptability, which then allows you to go through or have the mental flexibility to go through all the different stages of the entrepreneurial journey, because franchisees are also on that entrepreneurial journey. So it's critical. That's like kind of the key characteristic we're looking for people that join our corporate team, that people join through the franchising system, and the people that join their businesses.
Yeah. And I think when I think of that coachability too, I think of, like you mentioned, self-awareness. And I also think of a certain level of humility, right? Because that leads to openness, and, you don't know everything and you're willing to listen and learn. So yeah, no, I think that's great when you're trying to recruit, is is figure that coachability out. I think even any basketball coach, when you're looking at a prospect, it's like, will this guy put in the work and, listen to what we're saying or not?
And it's so interesting in franchising. And I mean to kind of keep going back to franchising, but, we spent 10 years in this product market fit phase of testing, trying, iterating. And the way I really think of it is we've built this amazing recipe to bake this amazing cake. And when you bring someone into the system, and if they don't have that self-awareness, they're like, it's that instant thought is like, oh, I can do this better, right? Or, oh, let me tweak this, or let me tweak that. And so that's one of those challenges you have to overcome if they don't have that ability to kind of have that self-awareness. Like, wait a minute, that's what I bought. I bought the ability to skip the 10 years of product market fit that these guys went through. Let me learn it. Let me actually bake the cake. Let me taste the cake. And then that's the point where we then can really learn together, because once they've baked it, once they've tasted it, now they're operating it exactly as the model is. That opens up all the possibilities for us to have a real dialogue about, okay, now I see how all this works. Now let's have a conversation about, hey, this is what my market wants. This is what my customers are saying. This is how the perception of the customers changed, or the sentiment of the customers changed, and then we can evolve together.
Yeah. Yeah, it can't just come down to pure raw talent, right? So for sure. Empathy is something, Tim, that we talk a lot about at our agency, having empathy for our customers, but even trying to communicate with empathy for our customers to their target audience, right? And really feeling their emotions. So wanted to talk a little bit more, about empathy, because it seems like it's a critical part of emotional intelligence, right? So especially when it comes to fostering, a business that, has to be client facing like yours, how would you say you've been able to foster that quality of empathy within your team so that then it creates the kind of customer experience that you're really trying to deliver?
Yeah, so the way we really think about our business is we look at it through the lens of constituents. So we really got 3 constituents. So it starts with having an amazing franchisee experience. And we've really mapped out that franchisee journey, which then means if the franchisee is having a great experience, they can create a great employee experience. And if that employee is having a great experience, they can create a great experience for the dog parent. And so we think about that, it starts with us here centrally and setting the example, and then understanding the journey of each and every one of those constituents. And so it's really got to start with the franchisee. And when I think about empathy when dealing with the franchisee, kind of one of the most important things is meeting where they're at. Mm. So you got to know where they're at. You got to triangulate them. You got to understand kind of where are you right now. And like we do some things to kind of do a check-in, like where are they at? How are they feeling about things? What are the skills that they currently have? So that we're not doing something what I call blind spot beating. Like, because it's easy to go in when you've run this business for so long, look at their business, say, of course you're doing this wrong. Like, why aren't you doing this better? But instead, understanding kind of where they're at and then helping them ask questions so that they can ultimately trip over their own truth. Mm. But you've got to understand where they're located first. And so then that franchisee learns those skills and lessons, and they can do that with their staff. And we've actually built a very deliberate career path in our business so that someone can start entry level and then work their way up to running one of these or running multiple of these. And that's a big feature of our business, right? Is give the opportunity to develop the best version of yourself. Well, in that, we then know where they're at in that journey from the beginning, and then can help them take the next step, the next step, the next step. And then it comes all the way down to the dog parent. And that was really the question you asked. And sorry, it took me kind of long to get there.
Yeah.
But once that employee really understands how they should be interacting with processes and systems are, we're really in the business of helping dog parents love and connect with their dogs. And so we've got to understand where the dog parent is in relation to their dog parenting. And so most dog parents effectively come to us the first time because they don't want to wash their own dog. They don't want to clip their dog's nails. But when we perform the service, we actually go through and collect all their health data. We weigh them, we do body condition, we go through skin, coat, ears, nails, teeth. That's what scent stands for in Scenthound. We evaluate all those health pieces. And before the dog parent can get their dog from us, we say, hey, let's just review your dog's overall health. And what we find is that when we educate them on kind of their dog's health, they instantly become more empathetically connected with their dog's needs. Mm-hmm. And so they come to us because they're like, I don't want to wash my own dog. They stay with us and they become members because they want to be good dog parents. And the real beauty of that is so empathetically connecting to their dog is that they receive all of the benefits of having a dog. Scientifically proven, if you have a dog in your life, on average, you have lower blood pressure. If you have a dog in your life, on average, you live longer. People are using dogs to deal with their anxiety. And so that's why you're seeing an explosion of dogs coming into people's homes and into lives. Every dog's a therapy dog right now, right? And so if we can help, if the frontline employee can help that dog parent empathetically connect with their dog and then start to think about something other than themselves, then think about the care of this dog, then all of a sudden they're starting to receive all that benefits. And it's an empathetic connection between the two. So there's a whole chain here on how we think.
I love it. Yeah, no, I love this so much. Like our internal philosophy is we call it Bliss. It's build love into scalable systems. And so I can see this path of really love from you, emotional intelligence and the empathy that you've got. And it's really this ripple effect, right? Like you said, it's kind of going from the headquarters to your franchisees and partners, right? And now down all the way to, your customers and their relationships. And you've really kind of found your sort of higher purpose in that whole process.
100%. And the way I kind of think of myself as the leader is I kind of envision myself as a tuning fork. And so I have to really be careful how I show up in every single interaction, how I show up every single day, every single daily huddle we do, every single meeting, because I'm trying to get people to tune to me. And if they can tune to me, then other people tune to them. And it is effectively that ripple effect. And there's an energy about it, but there's also a lot of systems and processes and practices that are in place. And it's really culture is, I think, just the compilation of the practices you put in place to reinforce the behaviors that you want. And is it so that we can help people show up in that same way every single day, which is to serve, to help people live happier, healthier lives, ultimately having dogs live happier, healthier lives, ultimately making the world a slightly better place by helping people practice love every day by using their dog to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to kind of underline the point you're making here about those systems and processes, because this is what, obviously you can have this, you can be a great leader and be the most emotionally intelligent person. But once you're out of the picture, if you don't have all that stuff systemized, all that put into process, then it's just, it can just disappear into the ether, right? So it's really key to make what you're doing part of this sort of a loving system that shows up all the time. And it's not just a random act, right?
Well, and culture is so fragile. Like witnessing it come and go when you bring the wrong leader in or you don't have the right system, and like it seems to evaporate overnight when it's not tended to like a garden. You know what I mean? You need to practice every day. And so some of the systems, is just an example that we put into practice, is we do a daily huddle every single morning at every single location. And we actually have a format to that daily huddle. That daily huddle starts with us connecting with our why. Why do we exist? We're not a dog washing business. We're in the love business. We're helping dogs live happier, healthier lives, and in turn helping dog parents become better dog parents and live happier, healthier lives. So why do we exist? Then we go to our core values, and we love catching people doing things right and versus catching them doing things wrong. So how can I give you a shout out based on one of my 5 core values? So we do that, and we have a whole system around how you get, rewards and prizes and stuff like that. Whoever gets the most core kudos over the month. But then who are the key customers coming in today? What is their objective for today? How are we going to help a dog today? We then tell a story about how we change someone's lives or how we help some dogs. So constantly connecting back with our why and connecting to the education on how we're going to deliver that in our daily huddles. So that's a really important practice for us.
Yeah. It's just so brilliant. I love how in a way you've encapsulated into the term, parent, because, being a parent, there's natural affection there, right, for your child. And so I think in this case, educating this dog parent about the state of their dog, just amazing. So you're really a brilliant way of encapsulating, the thought on that customer experience. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. So I guess shifting over a little bit towards scaling, this sort of business with, purpose behind it. And the role, I guess, that EQ has to play. So at Scenthound, you've seen some remarkable growth. What role has that emotional intelligence played in the scaling of the business, would you say, so that, you could then stay true to your purpose?
Yeah. So really, it's really staying on brand and staying in our culture. And so, I think of this business in phases. Kind of the first phase was product market fit. And we spent a decade kind of really trying to figure out, like, deep learning of the industry, deep learning of what dog parents want, and ultimately coming up with a model that was scalable around that. We decided franchising was probably the best way because it was a repeatable formula, but it was really important to us that we had the owner of the business in that marketplace. I didn't want a manager in some other state where we were trying to, like, I believe that when you own the business, you care about the business. If you live in the community and are a contributor to that community, you care about that community. And so franchising was really the best way for us to actually scale this business. We opened our first franchise location December of 2020. We just opened our 125th location. And so this last year, we averaged about a center a week. And you can't do that without good scaling systems. And as you scale, brand becomes more and more important. Culture becomes more and more important. That tuning fork, those systems and those processes, and making sure that we're all staying aligned with that is becomes a bigger and bigger job, because the systems and process around running the day-to-day operations, it's a recipe, right? But like, how do you actually scale the culture of this? And so we have a series of practices we put in place. Like just today, we did our brand update. Once a month, we get the entire system together and we celebrate the franchisees' wins. We celebrate our wins. We review our core values. We review our core pillars. We talk about stories about our why, constantly connecting back to why we exist. So that's one of the pieces. We also have a franchise advisory council that meets with a portion of the franchise system. So we surface their voice and their issues so that we're constantly addressing their needs, right? We do biweekly newsletters. So all these communication channels and connection channels allow us to continue to scale this business and scale that emotional intelligence and that empathy throughout, and the culture throughout the system.
Yeah, I think one of the toughest challenges with scaling is always when you get into that growth mode, you start having problems with culture, or you start shortcutting certain things, right? What's been your biggest challenges with scaling and maintaining that sort of trust and connection with everyone as you've expanded?
I think it's really like you get into your own market, you have your own customers coming in, you've got your employees coming in, and then you kind of lose sight of that bigger picture. And that's why it's a constant reconnect with us. And so we also have business coaches that meet with you weekly, biweekly, or monthly, depending on your maturity of how long you've been in the system and stuff. And then I think the other thing is just having really easy, accessible tools that I can always reference back to. So when I talked about the constituents, we created a constituent map and playbook for each constituent. So on a one-pager, we've got the customer experience from kind of when they first reach us to when they drop off, to experiencing the service, to when they pick up. What should that experience be like? What are the KPIs associated? What are the tools? What are the trainings associated with that? We did the same thing for the employee journey. And so actually stepping through exactly how they take that journey. What is exactly the exact experience? Like, how do they find out about us? What does the recruiting look like? What does that interview process look like? What does onboarding need to look like? What is that employee's experience as they go through each and every one? What are the tools you use? What are the KPIs you use to measure them? So that every time we're connecting with that franchisee, let's say it's weekly, we're like, okay, we understand this KPI is actually shorter than the other ones. Let's go back to that experience. Where are we missing at that? Let's fine tune that. Let's go back to have a class, or let's get some of this certification going on so that we can make sure that's the right experience for the employee. It's the right experience for the dog parent, or it's the right experience for the franchisee.
I love this so much. I love seeing people tackle these challenges with these empathetic systems they come up with. We've got a couple of questions here. This one's from a LinkedIn user. What personal experiences inspired your interest in emotional intelligence and shaped the way you lead today?
It's a great question. And actually, when I first started taking the entrepreneurial leap, this is 20 years ago, I took the entrepreneurial leap because I didn't want someone telling me what to do anymore. I wanted to make more money, and I wanted ultimately the freedom, right? And as I went down that path, I was not terribly successful. The business didn't do what I wanted it to do. I was struggling with it. And I ultimately went out and got a business coach. And the business coach started asking me all these kinds of questions about, like, what's your value system? What do you care about? What are you passionate about? Like, what difference do you want to make in the world? Like, and those were
business coach is trying to save your life right now.
And so when I started really reflecting on that, I was like, I have this wrong, right? I was like, well, what is my value system? And when we actually get down to it, our 5 core values is my value system. So I was able to clearly articulate that. What's most important to me? Connection is most important to me. And so working with dogs, why did I choose dogs? Like, why was I in that business? Well, because they're masters of connection. I'll tell you a really cool story, actually. They just did a study last year on dogs where they're actually looking at dogs' hearing. Dogs' hearing is about 5 times as good as humans' hearing. They took a dog and put it in one building and put a heart rate monitor on that dog. They had the owner in another building. They put a heart rate monitor on the owner. 100% of the time, when that dog is brought into the building in the room with their dog parent, the dog listens to the owner's heart rate and synchronizes their own heart with their owner's heart rate.
Wow.
Talk about connection, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
How cool is that? And so then I started to, like, really say, well, this is why I'm in this. I naturally kind of come to this, but I didn't understand why I was there, right? And then so when I started getting more aligned with, like, my why behind this and started understanding, like, man, connection is powerful for me. It's important for me. And I started, like, serving instead of, like, trying to, like, help people connect with their dogs and getting aligned with that. All of a sudden the business took off, right? And so that was a really important part of my journey, is just, like, getting my why right, getting my, why am I showing up for this every day? It's not about making money. That's a consequence. That's an outcome of doing what you're passionate about, right? And so that was a huge transition moment for me. And that was about 10 years ago. And ever since then, I've always kept using a different kind of, I've kind of had a different business coach every couple of years where I can continue to stretch myself and continue to evolve.
I love that so much. All right, that was a great answer. We got one more question from the audience here. Let's see, Tim, what advice would you give to leaders who struggle to balance empathy and with making tough business decisions?
Yeah, being empathetic doesn't mean being a sucker. And I'm not sure I put it that exactly the right way, but you also have to be convicted in what you're trying to achieve. And if you have to have everyone on the mission aligned with the mission and aligned with your values. And someone once said this to me, and this really stuck. Culture is only made of 2 things: what you reward and what you tolerate. And so we're all really good, I think, at the reward part. We're pretty bad at the tolerate part. But is it more loving to be authentic? Is it more loving to be honest? Is it more? I think it is. I think it's more powerful. And so I think it's emotionally intelligent and loving to be open, honest, in a kind way, and direct with people about what the needs of the organization are, what the needs of what they are. And if they don't overlap, then it's not the right fit. And so they need to find something where that overlap's greater.
I love that so much.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, I love that point, about the culture, rewarding and tolerate, right? And then you keep it between those 2 guardrails. So that's a really good point. So question for you, Tim, with regards to, the EQ, we talked about it a little bit with, like, the franchisees, but maybe more turning it now, I guess, towards the employees. How do you ensure that then your purpose and the emotional intelligence principles that you've talked about are embedded in the employee base? Basically from your headquarters all the way out to, maybe even those business coaches that you talked about.
Yeah, it's almost like that tuning fork idea, like how I show up every day then sets the example for how others show up. And so if I can model for you what leadership looks like and being emotionally intelligent, then I put you in a better position to be able to execute that yourself. And so I think that's kind of the first principle. I think the second part is putting them in a position to win. And that means setting up the right clarity, so they understand exactly what they're supposed to achieve, how they're supposed to achieve it, the conditions, so that they're in a position they can actually win. Do they have the tools? Do they have the training? Do they have the time? Do they have the resources to achieve what they need to achieve? And then the accountability, like, did you get it done? Why didn't you get it done? What is that feedback loop? And then when you actually get to that accountability piece and you have something, the iteration on that, which then goes back to the clarity, then creates the conditions, then creates the accountability, and then you iterate and you flow that cycle round and round. And I think that's how you ultimately tear down or spread that emotional intelligence and empathy throughout your system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that accountability piece, because it almost goes back to the cultural component that you talked about, because how are you going to tolerate or figure out about tolerating something or reward something if you don't have that accountability layer built in at the end? So.
And accountability is super hard unless you have clarity and you set expectations right out of the gate, right? And so that's where a lot of people miss too, is like, hey, I didn't set the right expectations. I didn't put the right visibility in place. I'm now frustrated with you because you didn't get done what I had in my head that you should have gotten done. And then then you're not in an empathetic place. But if you can back it way up and start it off right, which is like, here's the absolute expectations. Let me give you all the tools to do it. And then you get there and they didn't do it. Then you can have a conversation of like, what's the barrier? What's happening? How can I support you? What do you need? And then maybe it's they don't get it. Maybe they don't want it. Maybe they don't have the capability to do it. And then you can choose a different butt for that seat. Or it's just a little bit of coaching and you can get them on the right path and get them
for sure
back on track.
Yeah, I mean, and I think to your point there, it starts with the leadership. I love one of the things that Steve sort of hammers into us at the agency is that, sometimes if somebody fails, it's like, what did I do that, maybe didn't set you up, or, maybe I didn't.
Yeah. It's like all problems are my problem, right? It's like, okay, we failed in some way here. Did we not have the right training? Did we not make, like you said, were we not clear with a certain thing?
Totally. That's extreme accountability, right?
Yeah. It's extreme accountability. We like extreme things like that. Has there been like a challenging business situation where you felt like the emotional intelligence just sort of kick in for you and strengthen your team or your company, where you're just like, I could react this way, or I'm going to take this path?
I can think of more examples where I hasn't. I mean, so and those are the learning moments, right? Where you find yourself in frustration or in resistance or whatever. And those are the moments where you're like, okay, how did I get out of balance? What do I need to do to get myself back in balance? I think most of my frustrations has always come to that pattern. And this is a pattern that I have, which is I think I'm aligned with them in my own head, but I haven't clearly articulated it. And so then I get frustrated later. And then I always have to circle back on like, where did I miss on this? What did I not do right? So that's typically where I get to, is like, when I get to that place where I'm frustrated or stuck or something, it's always like, okay, what didn't I do correctly? And there's times where it's just like, okay, I've evaluated. I think I set the right expectations. I gave the right conditions, and the person doesn't get it, want it, or is capable of doing it. And that's a different conversation. But typically when I get stuck, it's because I've fallen short somewhere. And it's like, all right, what part of this didn't I set up this person up for success? And how do I need to go back and repair that?
Yeah, Tim, I'd said, I love that story that you gave about the heart rate monitor and the dog. So I'd say if you've got other pet stories, like we're all ears. We'd definitely love to hear more of those. However, though, maybe one of the questions I had for you was, you talked about that closed loop, the customer probably being, at the end of the experience that they're getting, and then bringing that back to, I guess, either yourself or the franchisee, the owner, to collect feedback. So my question, is more so, your customers will, often, want to feel that empathy. You're right. You need to like you've said, you've baked it into the DNA of the franchisees and of your organization. But then how do you collect that feedback to ensure that value is actually being delivered? And, if it's not, then, correcting that.
Yeah, I think of like I love mental models. So talking about the constituents, that's a mental model for me. There's a really great mental model, and I'm going to share this with you, and I think it kind of speaks to your answer a little bit. But I think of every business having basically 4 gears. So there's acquisition. How do you find customers? How do they become aware of you? There's engagement. How do they actually start interacting with your business and become engaged with your business? There's monetization. Like, how do you actually make money, make it a profitable engagement with that customer? And then there's enlistment. How do you make them into raving fans so they feed that acquisition loop again, right? And that's really that last gear. And I think what's really interesting about that mental model of those 4 gears is all 4 of those gears have to be turning at roughly the same pace for you to have a capital efficient business. And so let me talk about that for a second. So I'm acquiring a bunch of customers, but my engagement's poor. I'm bringing a bunch of dog parents in, but they're having a bad experience. Not only am I wasting those marketing dollars, but I'm actually creating ill will in the marketplace, which then, my cost per lead is going to go up because that invisible hand of negative word of mouth going on out there, right? So I've got to get that engagement wheel turning at the same pace of my acquisition, meaning as fast as I'm bringing them in, I have to be delivering an exceptional experience for them. They've got to be like, this is a great place. Then what we do, and at least our monetization, is the membership, converting them to a member, but also then collecting their health data and hyper-personalizing a solution for them that helps their dog live a happier, healthier life. So what are the additional services you're going to provide to their dog? It might be about their teeth, it might be about their ears, something like that, to help them live happier, healthier lives, which then creates a bigger profit opportunity for the business and the business to be healthier. We also found that the more services our customers purchase, the higher their satisfaction level is. And it's simply because they're receiving more health benefits and their dog's actually healthier, and that means they're happier. Well, those are the customers that go out and become raving fans and actually tell other customers about it. And so if you think of that adoption curve, we're really creating a new category. So we're really going out and finding first adopters. So we open up in Birmingham, Alabama. No one's ever heard of this. They only think of grooming, which is only 15% of the dog population, because only 15% needs haircuts. We're about wellness, which all dogs need, right? And so we're getting this whole other population of dogs. Well, those are the people that I need to go out and say, man, you know what? I just found out I wasn't a great dog parent. I'm doing great now because I'm actually caring for my dog in the right way. You should be doing this too. And this place was awesome. They'll take great care of your dog. I totally trust them. And so that's that feedback cycle. So that was a really long answer.
Yeah.
But I like that mental model when I think.
I think for people, a lot of people don't realize, like, marketing doesn't stop once the customer comes in a way. There is the consumption experience and there are consumption emotions associated with that. And if you want your customers to be your best marketers through word of mouth and everything, you really have to keep that through line of the experience impacting them and emotionally connecting with them in some way or form.
100%.
I think, you're like right on point there with that. Has there been like one point in your business development where maybe it's like a pivotal point where everything just either finally clicked for you, or, is there one particular thing you can think of?
Yeah, as I think about at least the journey that I've been on, this entrepreneurial journey, is like, you have these phases where it's like everything's clicking and you're going through this growth phase, right? And you've got this great energy, you just feel the momentum happening. And then at some point you kind of level out. And at that point, it's time to reevaluate. The business has probably grown to a new stage because of all that growth, requires a set of new skills and new behaviors to take it to the next level. And so you have to do a whole bunch of stuff when you get stuck there to kind of break through and then go through the next growth phase. We're in like the third, fourth one of those. And so there isn't kind of one point, but it just seems like that's the cadence, is like kind of every year, based on how fast you're growing. It was kind of 6 months at first and a year the second time, that you hit the ceiling. And then you need the mental flexibility or the adaptability to say, okay, the way we operated to get us here is no longer going to be successful to get us there. what is the new set of behaviors that this business requires from us, and how do we need to evolve and adapt to get there? And it actually takes the whole team to go through that evolution. And typically when you hit that ceiling, there's a tranche of your team that come along with you, and there's a tranche that are like, no, I'm good here. This isn't where I want to be. And so then you have to recalibrate that and then realign and get the people that get it, want it, and are capable of doing it at that next level. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how that your question occurred to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's a sort of a good point to think about it like that as companies are going through transition like that. So for our listeners, number of leaders tuning in, Tim, as we're starting to kind of wrap the show up, thinking about that, what advice would you give to the leaders that perhaps are struggling to develop this key quality of theirs of emotional intelligence and then implement it in their organizations? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the first thing is recognizing if your business isn't where it should be, where you want it to be, it's probably you. And I think that's the cold hard truth you need to face, right? You're typically the limiting factor to your business. And then you can't do it on your own. Like you need a support network. So is there an accountability group of peers you can get involved with? Is there a coach you can go out, seek out and bring on board? Is there industry groups that you can go and ask questions to? But the entrepreneurial journey, like just why franchising is so powerful, is that we create accountability groups. They get to work with each other and help each other out. You have to be able to find other resources. It's not something you're going to solve on your own. That's what I would say.
Tim, I usually ask this question, and sometimes I ask it in a loaded fashion when I know where the answer is going to go. But what do you say to those who say love doesn't belong in business?
Well, so my nonsense. Okay, so that's the first thing. I think business is effectively providing a product or a service that helps make someone's life better. And so isn't that kind of an underlying function of love, is to support somebody and to help improve their life in some way? And so business is solving problems. That's kind of foundational to what love is. And so we should all kind of switch it around to, and it was my first aha, which is I wanted to make money. Then when I got really true on like what made me happy and what did I wanted to do and what aligned with my value system and how could I provide value? Another great coach told me once, and I love this, contribution is the cure to all anxiety. And I loved when he said that, because that really struck home for me. Is like, are you contributing your true value to the world? Mm-hmm. That actually then makes you feel wonderful and better inside, instead of this anxious, like, I'm seeking for something. Find out what your gift is and deliver that gift. That's love, in my opinion.
That is awesome. Tim, where can people find out more about your business?
Yeah, so visit us at franchising.scenthound.com, or just go to scenthound.com and check out our service. I'd love for you to come check us out.
Thanks again, Tim. Thank you also to all those who are listening. Be sure to follow us for more conversations with leaders making a lasting impact. We will see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.